Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Mr. Glaive Keo is back at it again with some more Wuthering Waves content, and boy oh boy is this the perfect time to be making some Wuthering Waves videos with all of the 3.0 news and drip marketing that we got going on right now. While the topic of this video isn't going to be on that, I think it's still going to be relevant because it addresses a very, very, very important topic happening in the gacha space right now, and that is the undeniable level of shame and guilt that Hoyoverse players feel. They feel a ridiculous amount of guilt from not playing Wuthering Waves. They feel a ridiculous amount of guilt from continuing to play Hoyoverse games and not make the decision to actually quit when the developers are treating them like used condoms. And let's just be real over here. While Wuthering Waves has had a couple of rough patches over the past few months, they are clearly on the road to recovery. And I cannot say the same for any titles that bear the names of Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, or God forbid, Zenless Zone Zero. The end result is that there is constant backlash whenever Wuthering Waves does anything. There's a constant examination of issues that don't actually exist. And, well, in the past few months, in the past few weeks, actually, we've seen a lot of them come to a head. And it appears that Glaive has decided to go ahead and break all of it down and format it for us today. So why don't we see what has been going on, and what the hell are these Hoyoshills doing?
In the world of gacha games, comparing titles is normal. Attacking the competition, that has been happening since I was a baby. And at this point, it is expected.
Not even in gacha games, but in every single type of anything ever in human history, people have compared. What do people do every single Sunday or every single Saturday? They compare which basketball, football, soccer, also football, but like the European version, the same thing, right? They compare the teams in a contest and they see who's better, right? We had nations who compared their militaries against each other and we saw who was better. We have people that compare Coke and Pepsi and see which one's better. The idea of comparison, seeing one thing versus another thing that's similar, and then deciding which of the two, if I could only make one option, which of the two am I going to use, play, consume, or whatever. It's been a thing since the dawn of fucking man. And so this idea that comparison is not okay between gachas, but okay for everything else in the history of humankind, well, that's a Hoyoshill take.
Part of the culture, but with Wuthering Waves, something feels off. If you look closely at the backlash this game gets, it doesn't feel like a natural rivalry, it feels forced. Usually when people hate—
incredibly, absurdly forced. And you want to know what the funniest part about all of my critiques towards Hoyoverse games are? People go into my comment section, Hoyoverse players, and they say, whenever I critique Zenless Zone Zero, or I critique Genshin, or I critique HSR, they say that my hate is forced. When all I need to do is take a look at the amount of power creep that's been put into all three of those games in the past year, where new releases are overshadowed within 3 or 4 months. Who's talking about Skirk anymore, guys? Don't worry, they came out with 3 more DPSs that are better than her. You just have to pull all of their Nod-Cry teammates. Hey guys, what happened to Hugo and ZZZ? Hey guys, what happened to fucking Aglaya? Or God forbid, fucking My Day, or the Herta. What happened to those guys?
It is because the game is broken, or the gameplay is boring. But here, we are seeing people invent problems that don't exist.
And that's been the history of Wuthering Waves since its release. People have literally manufactured, via fan fiction, reasons for why there's something wrong with Wuwa. And this is just one example on the screen over here. People are trying to draw comparisons between Cartithia's unshaded, like they ported the model into Blender. There's none of the shading going on. It's going to look like shit. You can make anything look like shit with settings like this. And then they compare that to a fucking 2D splash art.
Are editing screenshots to make the art look worse. They are writing essays pretending to be offended by standard Japanese words.
One thing I learned is that if you get community noted, guys, you make no money from that tweet. So when I previously addressed the senpai situation and then said that Bogdano over here, who is intentionally rage baiting, was making a lot of money off of this, If you get community noted in this fashion, you actually make no money from this tweet. So please go ahead and keep doing this. Please keep being retarded so I can keep farming you. Now that I know that getting community noted doesn't give you any money at all, I have no regrets. Just keep posting dumb shit like this, please.
They are even stealing YouTube footage to fake technical issues. When you have to work this hard to find a reason to hate a video game, you are not offering criticism. You are putting on a performance. So why is there such a
They're putting on a performance, and if they have the blue check mark, then they make money from their rage bait. But if their rage bait is actually so false that they can get community noted, then they don't make any money. But that's the thing, right? You gotta toe the line when it comes to rage bait to be at least true enough to not be community noted. But these guys aren't able to toe it because they're a bunch of dumb 14-year-olds.
Right. Coordinated effort to paint this game as a disaster. Here is the reality. Wuthering Waves had a rough start, but it fixed its problems. The combat is deep, the movement is smooth, the developers are responsive, and that is exactly the problem. The hate isn't growing because the game failed. It is growing because the game succeeded. And for us,
it's a frustrating experience for anybody that just wants a reason to hate the game. Because reasons to hate Wuthering Waves have been in the history of the game. There have been reasons to hate Wuthering Waves, but Wuthering Waves, every single update tries to remove them. Sometimes they introduce things, right, like Nightmare Nest that are a little bit wonky, and then they introduce the quality of life updates later to make them good. But it is what it is, right? It's a process of constant, continuous improvement, and it's something where when you've been playing a Hoyoverse game for 2, 3, 4 years, and you've basically been drip-fed the smallest quality of life, guys, hey guys, when you pull the new character's banner arrives in Genshin Impact, they release the talent materials being locked to specific days of the week, guys. They release them for 2 weeks. On a character's 3-week banner, 2 out of the first 3 weeks, you get to farm without any restrictions. Why only for 2 weeks? And why only when their banner comes up? Why not just all the time? Why is there FOMO in the quality of life? Why can't the quality of life just go into the game? Imagine, right? If Wuthering Waves was just like, oh yeah, we'll give you echo loadouts, but you can only make an echo loadout for a character a week after they come out. And after that, your echo loadout is locked forever. And so you're going to have to farm up the perfect set within a week of the character releasing. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to save that echo loadout for later. You'd be like, what the fuck? Like, now there's like FOMO? I got to grind the character in a week to be able to use this feature? That's the same thing for Genshin, where it's like you got to pull the character within 2 weeks and then also spend all of your stamina for the character within 2 weeks. Otherwise, you don't get the quality of life. Imagine a system like that. Oh, wait, you don't have to because it's literally already in Genshin.
Specific group of people, that success is terrifying. So today we are not just looking at the drama, we are going to look at why this hate campaign feels so manufactured and the insecurity driving it. If you appreciate these kinds of deep dives into gaming psychology, consider subscribing and hitting the like button. It really helps the channel out.
You're gonna get DMCA for that one, brother. You ain't PewDiePie.
Now let's talk about it, right? To understand this war, we have to look at the foundation. And let's be honest, the foundation was shaky. There is a psychological concept called the primacy effect. Basically, it means the first thing you learn about something sticks with you the longest.
Yeah, the first thing I learned about Glaive Keo is that he was actually gay. Sorry, that was just information I wanted to share.
For a lot of people, their first impressions of Wuthering Waves was, let's call it, rough. You had bugs, you had lag, and you had a story that loved to dump 3 dictionaries worth of terms on you in the first hour. It wasn't great. But here's the thing about reality. It changes. Since launch, the game has improved at a speed that is frankly terrifying for.
And I think one thing that we need to talk about when it comes to the launch issues with the game is that 1,000,000% there was a concentrated effort to doom post the game on launch. I think that that is undeniable, especially looking back on it with the 2020 perspective and then seeing how other game launches have gone. When you know for a fact that Hoyoverse has paid CCs not to cover Wuthering Waves and to not post positive videos about Wuthering Waves. Hoyoverse has paid CCs through their partnership programs to not cover Woo-Wah. When I know that is without a fact been proven, I do not find it hard to believe that Hoyoverse would also pay people to doom post the game or to post negatively about it on social media, to lie about issues and manufacture them. I would not be surprised if Hoyo did that. I'm not saying that they did, but it would make sense to me if they did that, knowing that they have already paid CCs to not cover the game. That has been confirmed, by the way, guys. It has been confirmed. There are multiple CCs, gotcha CCs, who had Hoyoverse contracts, who were told, if you want to make a Wuthering Waves video, you have to send it to us for approval, and then we will let you know if you can or cannot upload it. That is essentially, imagine spending the time as a creator to make a video and then find out that you won't actually be able to upload it because your partnership program told you couldn't. That is basically de facto going to be you not making Woo-Wah content. Because what? You're just going to risk literally wasting your time because of the conditions of this contract? They can just say no? Yeah, you're just not going to make that in the first place. So yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And that's just one specific example of one CC, Kekvin. That's one of the conditions that they had going on. And let's be real here. That's some pretty fucking nasty shit. And it happens in JP too. We all remember the Narumero situation. Got reached out to by a JP community manager on Hoyo's team. And they told him, you need to stop playing Woo-Wah. And he did for several months. And nowadays, I think they're doing the same thing to Sevi. But it's kind of like the opposite, where Sevi actually is doing a couple of Woo-Wah deals, but then her authentic Woo-Wah videos, people are saying that they're all sponsored. Oh, dearie me. Is she getting paid to make videos of that gacha game to salvage their reputation? I'm about to take back my subscription because, girl, I really don't feel like seeing this. This is a retarded Hoyoshill. And they're basically saying that they're gonna unsubscribe from Sevi because she makes Wuthering Waves videos. Do it, pussy. She don't need you. Dumbass, you're useless. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
For the industry, the story completely changed. The movement got smoother. We even got flight now. And the animations went from good to movie quality. But here's the question, right? If the game is fixed, as I said, why is the hate getting louder?
Well, I've already given you a reason for why. The game's existence is a reason to hate it. Yeah, the game's mere existence is a reason to hate it for the most deranged Hoyoverse players. It's just a fact.
The answer isn't in the code. It is in the psychology. It is called the sunk cost fallacy. Have you heard of that before? Imagine you have spent 5 years building a house. You pour thousands of dollars into it, right? You have spent every day working on it, and then someone builds a modern, sleeker house right across the street in 6 months.
It's more like you're renting a house. And for some reason, your landlord is dog shit. Hoyer's your landlord over here. Your landlord is terrible. The price keeps going up on the rent. But for some reason, you have like this attachment to this apartment and you really don't want to go, even though prices are going up, maintenance is going down, like your heater's broken, your air conditioning is broken, everything is like fucking broken, right? But you never have the actual opportunity to leave because you love this place so much. Then a new apartment complex next door, right down the street. You could just walk there. A new complex comes in. Maintenance is on time. Everything's fast. All the appliances are new. That's Wuthering Waves. And these people just don't want to move. They just don't want to move when everything is literally getting worse. Everything is getting worse. And the other apartment only keeps getting better. That's the sunk cost fallacy. And I guess they just really like the walls or they really like the flooring in that apartment. Because no matter what's going on, these guys will never leave Genshin. And so what do instead of moving or recognizing how nice the apartment next door is? They get their toilet paper, they get their tomatoes, and from their shitty dog shit apartment's window, they start trying to throw all of this shit. They literally throw poo at the other building and try to make it look worse. That's what this feels like. It's probably the most accurate breakdown of the situation I could give.
It has air conditioning. You have two choices. You can admit the new house has some cool features yours doesn't, or you can convince yourself that the...
By that logic, I guess my landlord tries moving me into different apartments in the same building every month. Words from a ZZZ player, by the way.
New house is actually garbage. That air conditioning is for weak people. Real men would withstand the heat, and that your house is the only real house. For a lot of Genshin Impact players, this isn't just a game. It is an investment.
It's an investment, yes. Because you spend hundreds of thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of dollars, more like hundreds of hours and hundreds of dollars, into building this account, into building these characters. There's a daily login loop, all of this. You think about all the past time you spent in this game, or in that apartment, right? All the sacrifices you made to be in that apartment. Do you really want to leave that apartment after all that work you've done, even though everything's dog shit? Most people find it a lot easier to leave a house than they do to leave Genshin Impact. More people, like, they'd be faster to give up their place of living and move somewhere else than it is to move games.
They have logged in thousands of hours. They have spent the equivalent of a down payment on a car pulling for characters. I mean, I have heard many stories about people ruining their lives over gacha games. And
I remember that one guy who, like, lost his entire relationship and had to, like, cancel his wedding because he got a C2 for Rena. Yeah, that was funny.
this is why it hurts them so much when they see loyal players actually try the competition. You see clips of die-hard Genshin fans loading up Wuwa and losing their minds because they can sprint without a stamina bar.
What's Sevi's reaction to finding out about Echo loadouts?
That's... Wait. Are these loadouts?
I think I've seen all I need to see over here. This is you're watching like 5 years of mental trauma, like it's like that's 5 years of Genshin could never. Wait, she literally hasn't said a single word. That's despair. That's disgust. She's thinking about Hoyoverse right now. She thought about Hoyoverse for a second. Dude, she looks mad. She looks mad, bro.
You know, I'm trying so hard not to say it, but like, you should clip this. You should clip this.
Does somebody in your chat say you only get 20? Some stupid Genshin player in her chat apparently said, well, you only get 20 of them. Yeah, shut up, Mark. You only have 20 million more dollars than me. It's not like you're that much richer. Wait, I need to see somebody. You only get 20? Come on, Rainy. What the fuck are you doing, Rainy? What are you doing, Rainy? What the fuck? They also spreading the narrative that loadouts are useless. Well, if I'm gonna be entirely honest with you, 90% of characters don't need a second loadout, but there are a couple that do. So it is useful. I mean, it's useless on 90% of characters because they will only be using one set. I hope you guys understand that. But on the characters that do need multiple sets, it's very good on them. Really, really, really good. And with 3-piece sets, swapping around pieces, yeah, no, they're very useful now. So, yeah, that's just misinfo. All right, so yeah, we see the Genshin player reaction. It's pretty strong. Yeah, the biggest CCs of Genshin going to Wuwa, the reaction is really strong every time.
Or run up a wall.
And it's very telling.
Or fly without a character that is pay-gated. I mean, I watched this video, and they called Wuthering Waves
Genshin on steroids.
I mean, the reaction, right? That excitement, that is a threat. It validates the deep, quiet insecurity that maybe, just maybe, they are stuck in a game that doesn't respect their time anymore.
I think a big part of it as well is that they've made Genshin a part of their personality. They've made Genshin Impact and their affiliation with Hoyoverse games a part of their self-worth. Whenever there's something that makes a Hoyoverse game look worse, like how Wuthering Waves does every single update. When you see what's happening in WoWa and you don't see it happening in Genshin, even though the developers have billions more dollars in budget, a way bigger team, probably way more sophisticated and way more detailed pipelines and stuff like that because they have all that extra money. And then they see that this company with more resources is falling behind a smaller company with less resources. It's embarrassing. That's the issue. They've made Genshin and affiliation with Hoyoverse a part of their self-worth, but it's also inherently embarrassing to be affiliated with Genshin whenever stuff like this happens. It's embarrassing to be affiliated with HSR when news of global passives occurred, right? That's why so many people are so defensive about global passives like Mr. Pokey, because he realized this is a dog shit mechanic. It's embarrassing that my game is doing this. It's embarrassing that so much of my worth is tied to this game. I hate that it's happening, and so I want to deny how bad global passives are. It's the same dynamic for Genshin. It's embarrassing when Wuthering Waves comes in and adds echo loadouts when we haven't had them for 5 years. It's embarrassing when Wuwa's story is so much better than Genshin's, all of this stuff. It's embarrassing when Wuwa does all these things, and they're better than what Genshin does. So we're going to say that what Wuwa has is just bad, even if it actually isn't. Because the last thing that we want is to be embarrassed. And people will lie. One of the most common things that people will lie about is to lie so that they don't embarrass themselves. That is the most common fucking reason for somebody to lie. And that's where pretty much all the hate for Wuthering Waves gets associated from. Bro, this is actually funny. That's actually funny because the game is dying. The game is without a doubt dying, and it is, like I said before, it is his personality. Hey, at least he's taking ownership of the fact that the game is fucking dead. See, this is the thing. There's a reason why you don't see Pokey rage bait that much anymore, because I think he's done being embarrassed. I think the shame has actually gone. There's no shame anymore. So he's just fully leaning into it. And I'm not gonna lie, this is the most palatable Pokey has been in a long time. There's like the 5 stages of grief, right? There's like denial, whatever. He's at acceptance. He's at acceptance. He is the Hoyoshill, and it's been good ever since.
That is a painful realization. The brain tries to protect itself from that pain. So instead of having a rational debate about mechanics or movements, the community puts up a shield. They decide that the competition must be bad, not because it is, but because it has to be. Since
Yep.
attacking the gameplay is a losing battle, because let's face it, the combat speaks for itself. They have to find a new battlefield. They decided to attack the game's soul. They needed a way to feel superior. They couldn't use the gameplay for that, right? So they went for the visuals. You've probably seen the meme format, right? It is usually titled, "If this character was in Wuwa." They take a design from another game, usually a Hoyoverse title, but it doesn't have to be, and present it as a joke.
That's the funniest shit ever, when all I need to do is just look at the most gooner possible designs in all of the other games. Like, these people go ahead and they're like, oh yeah, Wuwa characters are all hoes. Yeah, that's how we work over here. All the Wuwa characters, they have way... I'm like, have you seen Lauma, bro? Have you seen Nefair? Have you seen Lauma? Have you seen Nefair? Brother, there'd be some HSR designs out there too that go a little bit crazy as well. Let's be entirely honest. It's so easy. Yeah, you got Mavawika with the Gooner suit. There's so many different designs out there that are just like clearly, all right, that are like clearly going a Escoffier with her naked apron. Huh?
On the surface, it looks like a critique of art direction. They are saying Wuthering Waves designs are generic or gooner bait, internet slang for stuff designed solely to please gooners. But look at what this is actually doing. It establishes a class system. By painting the competitor as trashy and naked, they get to frame their own game as high arts. They tell themselves, I'm not gambling on anime girls, I'm appreciating cultural lore and intricate fashion.
This all stems from the fact that Genshin's models look like dog shit for 2025, and Wuthering Waves' models, I mean, do I even... Yeah, bro, just get that shit out of here, man. Yeah, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. We don't even need to expand on that point. It's a wrap.
Might be gooning, but I'm high quality gooning. Like what? It doesn't make sense. And it makes them feel sophisticated. But
the world would be a better place if we stopped treating Twitter, Reddit communities for games as the main voices for these communities, because both are the worst platforms. Yeah, you would know best, Fob Master. Didn't you, like, fucking upload a clip of, like, Cartithia's ass cheeks and then you got, like, fucking retweeted, like, 7 million times for being a fucking degenerate? Yeah, I remember that one too, Fob. Yeah, I'd also say Twitter's dog shit after that one when I got fucking dragged around like a fucking, like behind, like, a literal, like, digital horse for about, like, 5 days. Just bumping on every single crack, getting farmed by like every single fucking 12-year-old anime fan. Got farmed by drama channels. Fob, nobody farmed your situation. I don't think anybody cared because they're like, oh, it's Fob Master. Of course that happened to Fob. They did. You're actually clueless. Hey, stop going over here and trying to stop going into my. Don't go into my Twitch chat, Fob, and then argue that you're relevant. Okay, it comes off as very desperate. Like bro's just out here saying, no, they did care. Okay? I assure you, people did talk about me. No, they really did.
Sense. And it makes them feel sophisticated. But it is a glass house, and they're throwing out a lot of stones. Because let's be real for a second. We're talking about the same company that made billions off a character pulling a sword out of her chest.
I forgot. Raiden Shogun also has one of the most gooner designs ever, too. Like, what is Raiden Shogun wearing, bro?
We're talking about Zenless Zone Zero, a game where the physics engine works overtime every time a character breathes. And here's the catch, and that is fine. I'm not judging it, but the hypocrisy is fascinating. When Hoyoverse does it, the fans call it character empowerment or bold design. Oh, mommy.
Or my favorite, and this is the term that I wish I never knew. This is the term that I found out because of Genshin Twitter. Body tea. The number of retarded children that I saw on Twitter posting a picture of Lauma and then saying body tea, like T, like T-E-A. Bro, I wanted to do things to myself in Minecraft after like finding out what they were actually saying. They're basically saying,
Wuthering Waves does it. It is labeled as desperate.
What does that mean? So basically, like, T means like good. T means like good. So like body T means that like, oh, her body is like amazing. That's essentially what it means. It's a retarded way of saying it, but that's what it means. They were essentially all saying, oh my god, Lauma, body T, and then like Cantarella, whore, right? It's like that. The same people saying, the same exact people calling one body T and then saying the other one's a hoe, right? That's the distinction there.
Hit rock bottom with a bread. Someone posted a picture of a bread roll that looked like a butt and said, bread if it was in Wuwa. Like, come on, man. Sure, it's funny. It got 17,000 likes, but it proves that this isn't about art criticism anymore. It is
the best way to deal with this whole X if it was in Wuwa thing is to literally just own it. Because anybody with a functioning brain cell knows that all of these games have gooner elements to them. And Wuthering Waves is nowhere near the top when it comes to the top of the Gooner rankings. But Hoyoverse players will pretend that it is because they are desperately looking for any way at all to shed Wuwa's positive image. Any route at all. Anything. And they'll do it.
It's about reduction. They are actively trying to dehumanize the work of the artist. They look at a game with incredible muscle definition and fabric technology, and they reduce it all down to just gooner beats. Because if they admit their art was technically impressive, they lose the moral high ground. They even tried to weaponize the genre itself. People started calling the game Gathering Wives. It was meant to be an insult. It was meant to say, this is just a shallow harem game for lonely people. But then a funny thing happened. The Wuthering Waves players just agreed. They started saying, hell yeah, I'm gathering wives.
And that's exactly what you need to do with X if it was in Wuwa. You just own it in the same exact way that this was owned.
Because honestly, what do you think this was? It is a gacha game. The entire business model is based on parasocial relationships and collecting attractive characters with tragic backstories. Attacking a gacha game for having a harem is like walking into a casino and making fun of people for gambling. It is like the whole point. By embracing the insults, the community took the weapon away. The aesthetic war mostly failed because, at the end of the day, people like attractive characters. So if calling the game ugly or trashy didn't stop people from playing it, the haters had to move to the one place where they thought they were safe.
I don't think that was even a thing in the first place. I don't think that there's anyone out there that was like, oh, hey, I saw a bunch of people criticizing Wuthering Waves the other day. They were all talking about how absolutely scantily clad all the women were in the designs. And because they showed me that, I decided to quit the game. I don't think that's ever been said. Yeah, I'm gonna be real over it. I don't think any active player of the game saw something about that on Twitter and then was like, you know what? I've been an active player. I'm gonna stop now. It was just what I feel like it is just genuinely one of the most pointless discourses to have. And it is. I think it's literally just the only engagement that posts like that get is just like literally within an echo chamber of Hoyoverse players. I think that's it.
To go after the gameplay. And this is where things get intellectually dishonest. You might have seen the viral argument going around.
Now we're moving on to gameplay.
And I made a video about it too. Wuthering Waves combat isn't
I made a video about it as well.
deep. You just memorize the enemy's moves and parry them, and that is it. And if you play action games, you probably realize how ridiculous that statement is. By that logic, Street Fighter is a shallow game. Sekiro is a shallow game. Because yes, technically you're just reacting to moves, but
any game, when you describe it like that, is shallow. You just gotta memorize what everything does and then just repeat in order.
this reveals a fundamental confusion. These critics are confusing complexity with depth. Complexity is the how. It is the number of rules. It is the stuff in the game. It is the list of ingredients on the back of the box. How many elements are there? How many character kits, weapons, status effects? It is all the information you have to look up on a wiki. A game with high complexity is hard to learn.
Imagine if in Wuthering Waves, you had, instead of 5 echoes with 5 substats each, you had 25 echoes with 1 substat each. That would make the game a lot more complex, but that would add no depth. That would make the game way more complex to play. It would take way more time to like sort your inventory and do all of that. That's added complexity, but does that add any actual depth or any more enjoyment to the game? Absolutely not. That's the difference between Wuthering Waves and Genshin Impact, ladies and gentlemen.
Keyword hard to learn, okay? Depth, on the other hand, is the why. It is the consequence of all of those rules. Do all of those moving parts actually matter?
Nah, having 25 different echoes versus 5 echoes with 5 substats doesn't really matter. Doesn't really lead to interesting choices. It just it just quadruples, quintuples the amount of time it takes for me to gear my characters.
Matter? Do they lead to meaningful choices? A game with high depth is hard to master. Again, remember the keywords here. Complexity is hard to learn. Depth is hard to master. The people calling it Wuthering Waves shallow are trying to protect their ego because they want to believe that being good at navigating a menu is superior to being good at pressing buttons. Because if they admit that mechanical skill matters, they have to admit they might not have any. And then we have the cheat code proof. To prove the game was brainless, they posted a video of themselves fighting a boss.
The thing with Genshin Impact players and player skill is that Genshin Impact players recognize that there's pretty much no actual mechanical complexity in their game. Because every character has 2 buttons, and like some of them have like 3, but they're very far and very few between. So it's just like there's always this desperate sense from a gameplay perspective to not seem so shallow, to not seem so surface level, because it's embarrassing that Genshin's combat is so simple. That's what it is. That's a realization that a lot of Genshin players have had. It's inherently kind of embarrassing to be seen playing the game because it's so fucking baby simple. And everyone that has played it has seen how simple it is. And they're just like, yeah, on the actual execution side, that's why we see literal toddlers able to execute perfect Mava-Wika combos filmed on fucking vertical phones.
Use the max level, max investment whale character, basically a unit that cost hundreds of dollars to max out. They stood there, ate every hit, mashed 1 button, and beat the boss. And their caption was, see, no skill needed. And this is bad faith criticism. It is playing the game wrong on purpose to prove a point that doesn't exist.
An S6 unit 1K plus dollars and just spamming the left mouse button. You want to know what I can do with an Archon team in Genshin Impact? I can put in Farina, Zhongli, Raiden Shogun, and Nahida, and AFK and kill an enemy. Because all of those attacks deal off-field damage without any input. And I could just repeatedly just cast all the abilities, then AFK for 30 seconds and go clear content.
You used your wallet to bypass the gameplay and then complained that there was no gameplay. But why go to these lengths? Why lie about the difficulty? I think it goes down to envy. In Wuthering Waves, the difficulty is a dance. If you are skilled enough, you can beat almost anything. You dodge, you parry, you survive. In their main game, the difficulty has become a paywall. You have bosses with gray HP bars that literally require you to buy specific new units to defeat them efficiently. It is not a test of your skill, it is a test of your inventory.
Enemy has 2 or 3 HP bars unless you pull the newest limited units. That's the mechanic. The enemy gets 2 HP bars, and one of them disappears if you pull all the newest Nodcry units. I would be embarrassed too. If there was competition, and I've already made my decision, I'm going to play Genshin. Nothing is ever going to make me stop playing Genshin. And then they add that shit to the game. The Ascendant Glean garbage. 2 HP bars unless you have 2 Nodcry units on your team. I would try to fight back too. I would try to fight back too if I had no other options. If I just wasn't going to quit the game, I've already drawn my line in the sand. I'd start making shit up about Wuwa as well. It's just not good. With that's just not at a good point.
They see Wuthering Waves players having fun mastering a fight. It highlights how boring their own pay-to-win loop has become. So instead of demanding better from their own game, they try to convince everyone that skill is fake. But you can only lie about gameplay for so long before people realize they can just download the game and try it themselves.
And they realize that's where everything falls apart. Why do you think there are so many Genshin players that are desperately trying to get their CCs to not play the game? Why do you think there are so many desperate Genshin players that are begging their CCs to quit, begging their CCs not to cover, or threatening to unsub and leave their community if they don't stop playing they don't stop playing Wuthering Waves? It's because they know that there's going to be a latent realization when somebody sees how higher quality of a game Wuwa is, that they might not be as serious about Genshin content creation anymore. That they might decide to go ahead and make more Wuwa content. And they're that desperate to, once again, appear superior because of that sunk cost.
So when the gameplay argument fell apart, the hate shifted again. If they couldn't call the game bad, they would try to call the players cringe. So they went after the culture. And this is where things get genuinely embarrassing. Not for the game, but for the people complaining about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the most recent incident. I like to call it the Senpai incident.
This one is hilarious.
A new student character, Chisa, calls the main character Senpai. And now in the real world, and in Japanese language, Senpai just means senior. It is a title of respect you use for someone with more experience than you, right? It is about as sexual as calling someone boss or coach. But these people, they posted this clip with captions like, "Are we surprised?" and
Or it's like saying sir or ma'am.
classic harem slap. When these tourists hear the word senpai, they don't hear a cultural term of respect. They hear hentai. Their entire understanding of Japanese culture comes exclusively from hentai or questionable romance anime. They projected their own dirty mind into a normal conversation. It got so ridiculous that an actual Japanese politician had to comment on the drama. Basically,
It does kind of actually show you where the person's head is when they hear a term or a word that has a technical that has a connotation, but it's not the most common one, and then they immediately assume it's the worst association. That actually is a bit of a self-report. Yeah, that actually ends up telling more about you as a person than the people that you're actually accusing. And that's what happened over here. It's legitimately funny.
asking, why are foreigners confused by a normal word?
It's a actual own goal.
When you are getting fact-checked by the Japanese government, you probably lost the plot. They did the exact same thing with the voice acting. There was a viral post with thousands of likes calling the voice acting abysmal. And the proof? A clip of the character Rachia speaking in a flat, monotone voice. Here is the context they conveniently left out. Rachia is a kudere. And for those who don't speak anime like I do, that means a character who is cold, emotionless, and usually traumatized. She is scripted to sound like that. She is supposed to sound like that, to sound empty. Critiquing a robot for sounding robotic isn't valid criticism.
You can, however, critique Rosia as a character. Whatever they did with her, making her all quiet and shit like that, it's dog shit. She's an awful fucking character. Without a doubt, I think she's the worst character in the game. Design, kit, everything-wise. That's my take. You can hate on the character for sure, but hating on the voice acting for what was... I think it's good voice acting for a bad character. So it ends up coming off as not a great voice.
It's just ignorance. But in the industry, we call this clip chimping. You take a 10-second clip, strip away all the context that makes it make sense, and use it to paint a narrative that the developers are incompetent. And following this, there is an accent problem. A lot of these tourists have spent the last 5 years playing Hoyoverse games, right? And look, Hoyo dubs are fine.
No, they're not. They're not good. You wanna know why? Because all I need to do is play this.
You're Lord Phaethon? Impossible. There's no way. But could you really be Lord Phaethon? Unbelievable. I've been your biggest fan for years now. This is like a dream. Could you...
I'm done.
Hollywood. It is the generic American standard, at least until recently when they started to hire voice actors from EU. But Wuthering Waves tries to be different. They use European accents to match the different regions of the world.
I think the English VAs just really, or the American VAs just don't really sound that good right now. I feel like that's kind of just what's going on. They just don't really sound that good. I genuinely think the European ones just sound better nowadays. I'm not even entirely sure if it was like a need to like go with the European accents for the European region. That's my take. I don't necessarily know if that's what they were going for, because like Chisa sorta has like the Japanese thing going on. Zani's like Italian over here, but then Carlotta's like English. They literally have like all of Europe in like one area. So it's like, it kind of doesn't make that much sense why there are so many different European accents in one area, right? Because it feels like, it doesn't feel like Raguna is meant to be necessarily multinational. And so if they're all from the same area, why do they all have different accents? So I wouldn't, there's like a, if that's the viewpoint that we want to take, they're not really like sorted at all. And so it kind of makes it seem like a little bit less thematic. That's just my take on accents.
Because the critics' ears are so conditioned to that American standard, they hear the accent in Wuthering Waves and immediately call it bad or forced. They are framing
if they're calling the accents bad, then yeah, they're dipshits. No, because no, the voices in all of 2.x are amazing.
Stylistic choice, diversity as a failure. But honestly, up to this point, you could argue that this was just bias. Maybe they really are just culturally illiterate. Maybe they just have bad takes. We could almost forgive it, right? But what happened next wasn't an opinion. It wasn't a bad take. It was active, malicious sabotage. This is where we cross a line. We stop dealing with opinions and start dealing with lies.
Okay.
The trigger for this was the Game Awards, specifically Wuthering Waves getting nominated for Mobile Game of the Year. And now in the real world, this is just a nomination. But in the narrative these critics have built, this is a disaster.
Massive day for the unemployed.
Remember, their entire identity relies on the idea that Wuthering Waves is a dead game or a flop. If the industry validates it with an award, that narrative collapses. So they had to destroy the game's reputation before the trophies were handed out. There is a post blowing up on Twitter claiming that the game was unplayable on mobile.
Oh, dearie me. Oh, dearie me. Hey guys, let me go find the oldest smartphone that I can. Let me go find the oldest possible smartphone that I can, download this game, try to run it, and then screen record it. And let's go see how much shenanigans I can cause. These people are literally like pushing the envelope to intentionally make things look as bad as possible.
Showed footage where the game looked like it was running on a PlayStation 2. There is no NPCs, blurry textures, jagged edges, and the caption laughed at the idea that this broken mess could be the game of the year. And people believed it at first. I mean, why wouldn't they? If you haven't played the game, that video is damning. But then the community notes arrived. It turns out the person who posted that didn't record their own gameplay. They didn't pull out their phone and show us how it ran. Instead, they went to YouTube. They searched for a guide specifically titled Best Lowest Graphic Settings. They downloaded a video of someone intentionally turning every setting down to the absolute minimum, likely to run the game on a 10-year-old device, and they presented that as the default experience.
Guys, this is like buying a treadmill, saying you're gonna lose weight, right? And then telling people, I've been on the treadmill for 10 hours and I've lost no weight. I've been on the treadmill for 10 hours every day for the past month. and have lost no weight. And then you find out later that their settings for the treadmill were on 0 for the entire month. It was just on 0, and they were sitting on a chair on the treadmill for the entire fucking month. That's like basically what this was. Complaining that the game looks like shit when you turn every single setting to the lowest possible. It just makes you wonder, right? Like, what's wrong with these guys? What's wrong with these individuals?
We think about that level of desperation that requires. The game runs fine on any modern phone over $300. It is optimized. We know this. They know this. But because the facts didn't support their hates, they had to manufacture a lie. They had to frame a low specs guide as a broken game showcase. Like, this is literally sabotage. It is a calculated attempt to trick potential new players into thinking the game is a scam, so they never even download it. When you have to fake evidence to prove a point, you have already lost the arguments. You aren't a critic anymore. You are just a liar.
Hoyoverse players talking shit about Wuthering Waves get community noted so often, it's ridiculous. And you would have to imagine that at some point, receiving a community note for these guys is like a fetish. I think that they get some type of gratification every single time that they get like caught up in a lie. I feel like they really enjoy it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it this often because they get noted every time.
It brings us to the final question. Why? Why go this far over a video game? So if you step back and look at this whole mess from a distance, it's
why go so far over a video game? I feel like I've already gotten into it, but let me just give the TLDR for this section. They have mental illness. If they were born 500 years ago, they would have been separated from the rest of society. But we live in the modern day. And instead of that separation occurring, they are instead walking among us.
Starts to look like a pattern. It actually reminds me of that famous Narcissus prayer, but adapted for gaming tribes. It goes like this, right? First, they said the game wasn't good. It was just hype. And if it was good, they said the art was trashy gooner beats. And then if the art was fine, they said the combat was brainless. Just parry, bro. And if the combat was actually deep, they said the culture was cringe.
There's always a reason.
Freaking out over the word senpai. And when all of that failed, they just lied. They faked the footage. This constant shifting of the goalpost tells us the truth. This entire ecosystem of hate isn't actually about Wuthering Waves. It is a massive collective defense mechanism, like a psychological trick your brain plays to protect your ego from getting hurt.
There's a reason why people can naturally, like, not remember things, right? If there's something that, like, you really don't want to think about, sometimes your brain will just filter it. These guys have allowed a game, a company like Hoyoverse, and a game like Genshin to become so significant in their mind and in their life that they're like now, like auto, it's like a fucking exploration passive. They're like auto repressing any logic when it comes to other gacha titles that might potentially compete with Hoyoverses. Like straight up, they got like a passive from like COVID and then spending their formative years playing Genshin Impact. And I don't know. I think that passive is permanent, bro. It's more like a debuff, actually.
These communities have built their entire identity around the idea that their game is the best, the king. But they can feel that the king is stagnating. They can feel that the competition is innovating, doing things they wish their game would do. But instead of asking their own developers to do better, they try to drag the competition down to their level.
Because when you know your developers don't listen and they will never put in the changes that you're asking for because you asked them for 5 years, well, you've already played that card. Now the only way for Genshin to look better is to make Wuwa look bad. So that's what they do. And that's what, unfortunately, having dog shit devs that never listens to you, that's what it does to the community. Because guess what, guys? People don't really do the whole, oh, yeah, Wuwa's actually way better than Genshin about this. The most that people do nowadays is just say, this new thing that Genshin added is dog shit, because it actually fucking is. They don't even bring Wuwa into the conversation anymore. Because people now know that Wuthering Waves is better, and if there's anything that Wuthering Waves is lacking in, people have confidence in the developers to make it better soon. Hoyoverse players, they're just constantly now on the lookout of, how can we say Genshin is better than Wuwa? The pendulum is trying to shift to the other side, but it's so hard to make the argument, what is better in Wuwa, or what is better in Genshin that's worse in Wuwa? It's so hard to ever think of anything to put into that argument so that, like, that video never gets made, that tweet never gets made. And so it's just constantly putting down woo-wah for things that aren't even true.
Realized they couldn't rise to the standard Wuthering Waves set for combat and movement, so their only option was to convince everyone that the standard didn't exist. So next time you see a hate post like this, take a second, peel back the layers, and usually you won't find a real critique underneath. You'll just find insecurity. And that leaves me with a question I want to ask you guys. At what point does simply liking a game turn into this? When does brand loyalty cross the line into organized reality denial? And have you seen these patterns play out in other gaming communities?
We see it play out in other gaming communities, but not to this high of a degree. Because most gaming communities are able to recognize when a product is just objectively better than others and go flocking towards it. But other games don't have a gacha system. Other games don't have like a sequence node or like a constellation system, all of that stuff, right? It's way easier to drop Call of Duty and go to... It's way easier. More people will drop Call of Duty and then go to Battlefield, or vice versa, right? Way more people will do that versus drop a gacha and then move to a similar gacha. It just doesn't occur that often. I think this video is the perfect breakdown of everything that's going on over here and explains all of the absurd dynamics we've had going on in the Genshin versus Wuthering Waves space for the past couple of months. That'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome video by Glaive once again. Let me know what you all thought about this one, and peace out.